City of Marysville and Union County. Tonight we have a session on workforce challenges, how it relates to housing and the challenges our companies are currently having from a workforce perspective, which I think we're all fully aware of. And we have an illustrious panel here. I'm going to turn it over to Beth Sanders. She's the moderator and the facilitator tonight, and she'll let her introduce our speakers. But again, this is a great panel. This will be online, so this will be shared, and people can view it online as well. So those that are going to parade, they can watch it later, I guess. But again, thanks everyone for coming. I'm going to turn it over to Beth.
Okay, so we should start with our intros then, huh? Okay, well, thank you for coming this evening. I want to, first of all, thank everyone for being here and for everyone who took part in preparing this evening. My name is Christine Ernst. I am the Human Resources Lead at Nestle R&D, which is located in Marysville, right off Collins Avenue. I have been with the organization just shy of 2 years. I have over 15 years of HR experience and in a variety of different environments. So I feel I bring a unique perspective to the topics we're discussing this evening. I've worked in corporate HR, I've worked in factory and manufacturing, leading HR for a few different types of facilities. And then most recently with my time at Nestle, working in the R&D space. So I'm sure you're all very familiar with Nestle, the name, and all of the brands that come with the name. I'm very proud to work for the organization, which is why I work there. So in my short, just shy of 2 years that I've been there, I'm excited to share some of the wonderful things that we're doing to overcome some of the workforce challenges that we face, along with many other organizations as well. But as a whole, I think when we think about Nestle, we think about all the great brands that we represent, right? Surprisingly, whether you know this or not, Marysville, the facility here has been around, the facility itself in Marysville has been around for over 100 years, and Nestle has owned it, not the entire duration it's been around, but since the early 1918, I think, is when Nestle purchased it. And then over time, it's transformed from a factory, which is what it was initially, to the R&D facility that we are today. So the brands that we represent, we have over 2,000 brands when we think about Nestle. They're not all represented at the small facility in Marysville, but we do, because we're an R&D facility, we are pretty small. We're a pretty small footprint within Nestle. We only have about just shy of 200 employees, and we have a global presence as well. We actually report in through Switzerland, but we are fortunate to sit in the US, so we have a very dynamic situation that we have with regard to our brands and what we do. We're focused primarily on liquid beverage and coffee, and soluble coffee, ready to drink coffees. So I'd love to throw out some of the names. I said we have about 2,000 brands, different types of brands that Nestle represents. But as a whole, I think some of the big names that you probably would recognize are like the DiGiorno pizzas. We have Purina, which a lot of people are surprised about, Gerber. So a lot of well-known brands and names. We have a partnership with Starbucks. It's a lot of fun. You get to experience a lot, and working for the largest food and beverage organization in the world is quite exciting. So happy to be here. Thank you for coming, and I'll pass it over to my panel peer speaker, Brian.
Thank you. So again, thanks for coming this evening and having me. It's a great opportunity to kind of share the challenges that we're having across the board. It doesn't matter the type of business that you have. Workforce stability is an ongoing problem, has been for many years. So again, my name is Brian Beard. I represent Honda Logistics North America. We're comprised of many subsidies throughout North America. So if there's a Honda facility, we'll have a facility at location supporting the logistics part of the business, receiving parts and shipping parts to Honda. But as for me, I've been with the organization for over 23 years now. I've been in many different roles. I've been on assignment to our various subsidiaries throughout North America, traveled to Japan, China, Canada, Mexico, and have been around. So everywhere I go, there's always workforce challenges. But my current role is a project, and that project is right in alignment with workforce stability. Because we can't find enough resources to support the logistics operations, forklift drivers, packers, pickers, delivery associates, we're looking to automate the processes to reduce our dependency on labor resources. Because you have three choices. You recruit and retain associates, you put intelligent technology or automation in to reduce the need for associates, or you have to give up the business. And we're in that position in certain areas where we don't have enough associates that we have to reach out to other locations, other states to find those resources. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But again, my role is focused on that today. I have been in all the different areas, vice presidents across many different companies, working very closely with the HR teams and really trying to find solutions to find associates. But again, I'm excited about tonight, looking for a good discussion, and I'll pass it over to Adam.
Good evening. I just want to echo the comments of thank you for being here, taking time out of your busy schedules to learn about workforce challenges and workforce opportunities that we have across Union County. As a public school superintendent, we play a role in that. We have an operational side where we are looking for employees in a variety of specialties to come into our schools and work with students. But then we also have the other side of partnering with industry, our communities, and secondary institutions to prepare students for what they're going to see when they leave our schools. My name is Adam Scherg, and I serve as superintendent in Fairbanks Local Schools. This is my 5th year in Fairbanks. I'm assuming most people have some familiarity with our school district. We have about 1,100 students. We are in the southern third of Union County. We cover roughly 133 square miles. And so we pull students. We do not have a Marysville uptown for our schools to necessarily come together. We pull from a variety of communities, Milford Center, Unionville Center, Rosedale, Ostrander, Plain City, Marysville. Students from all of those areas come together in Fairbanks Local Schools, and so they all have in common that they're Panthers. It makes it a very exciting place to work, that we get to be the center of that community, but then also poses us with different needs from a workforce lens of hiring, but then also what our students are going to be going into once they leave our schools. And so I hope tonight that I'm able to add some value of what we're working on in our public education spaces to get students ready for what they're going to encounter over the next 10 to 15 years in the workforce, as well as how we're dealing with workforce challenges in the education sphere. So with that, we'll hand it over.
Adam, is my mic on? Good. I was just going to say, yes, Adam, could you tell us the 4 E's that you talked about? I want to make sure that this audience hears.
So when we talk about preparation for students leaving our schools, we talk about employment, talk about enlistment, talk about enrollment, we talk about entrepreneurship. So we want to weave those themes, especially in our secondary schools, so grades 6 through 12, where students are starting to think about they don't have to make determinations, as a 12 to 18-year-old, but really start to think about what their interests are, what their natural attributes are, and where their skill sets lie. So when they start to make those choices, we want them on their graduation day to be able to say, this is what I'm going to do the next day. And that's one thing that is very critical for us, is we want them to have a hopeful future. So as they leave our school district, they say, this is the step I'm going to take and how I'm going to add value, not just to my life, but also to my community.
Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So I'm Beth Sanders, and I'm the moderator for tonight, and I'll be asking these folks some questions. I own a company called Life Bio. We're a software development company. We just develop software for typically used in the aging population. And I really appreciate this panel being put together tonight. As a company, we face workforce challenges too, hiring certain positions. And just to kick it off before I ask the question, I'll just say that I recall my time in high school, and when I wasn't sure what I was going to do, it's possibly something all of us faced. There's so many possibilities now for young people today. I think that, there's also the different market forces and changes that are happening, that are exciting, but scary for young people and all the things all the possibilities they have. It's almost sometimes maybe too many choices, or some of our workforce doesn't know really what is out there. So even in our prep call, to hear the kind of jobs that you were talking about was exciting to hear the possibilities. So I was going to ask Brian, what are the most significant workforce challenges your organization has encountered in this community?
So I would start off by saying skilled workforce, because we're kind of a mix. We have engineers, we also have.
Push the button on the mic, it turned off, I think.
No, it's on. Wait, I'll just straight. Can you hear me now?
Ah, okay, sorry.
Yeah, so back to the question about what types of challenges we have in the workforce. It's finding skilled associates, maybe mechanics, maybe technicians, IT people, professionals, accountants, et cetera, et cetera. But what we find is that they, number one, don't know who we are. They don't know what we do, because we don't do a good job of branding. So we don't brand who we are. Honda Logistics North America, Midwest Express is another company I represent tonight, as well as One World Logistics, OWL, the trucks you see going up and down 33. But it's hard, because each one of those businesses require a certain skill set. And it's hard to have somebody to understand that you're not just going to come in and drive a forklift. You're not just going to come in, and drive a yard truck or pack parts. There's opportunities for growth, and there's what we call the life cycle. So we want to bring them in. Number one, educate them who we are, and then tell them, hey, there's a career path here. There's a life cycle. We want to have you here for your entire career, and you can start on the floor. You can become a team leader. You can become management, and most of the people that are in our leadership team are management. But it is hard to sell that to people, and it's hard to find the skilled people that buy into them. So what we're trying to do, as I go back to, is the branding. For many, many years, we didn't even have a sign on our buildings. You're driving down 33, you have no idea, you see tan buildings. What do they do there? Are they Honda? Are they NEX? Or who are they? So the first thing we did was put Midwest Express across a brand new building earlier this year. And that alone starts bringing in foot traffic. Oh, the Midwest Express, that sounds neat, it's a catchy name. And now we've got a brand new building we're going to put in place, and we're going to convert it to our headquarters for Honda Logistics North America and put that across there. So that Honda name is very good for branding. And hopefully we'll bring in more skilled people. But again, the challenge is a lot of the skilled people do not want to drive and live in, Marysville, East Liberty, Ohio area. They want to live maybe in a Dublin or Columbus area, because they don't understand what Marysville has to offer and what Union County have to offer. So what we need to do, and what we've been trying to do, is partner with Eric and his team to get our name out there, understand what we do, and look for solutions to get people in those locations, especially the skilled people, including CDL drivers. We need CDL drivers to drive our trucks over the road. Well, again, they hear One World Logistics, they don't know who that is. It's not a Ryder, it's not a DHL, it's not a big name. So again, it's all about branding and trying to collectively work with the community to bring that visibility to us.
And you're willing to employ them right out of high school in these
absolutely.
entry level.
Absolutely, we have entry levels right out of high school. But again, if they don't have the exposure to us in high school, they're not going to know what we do and not know that's an opportunity for growth. And that there's not only, again, a position to come out off the floor and start packing parts, but you can learn how to drive a forklift. And that requires a lot of skill, especially in the environment that we work in with just-in-time delivery, a lot of people moving around, a lot of equipment moving around, and then they can go into a yard truck, learn how to drive a yard truck, and from there they can go get their CDL license, get a CDL license, drive over the road. But again, CDL drivers are paid very well and are very skilled and are much in demand in our industry. So again, you can start out on the floor and then end up as a vice president of the company. One of my peers, he started off as a temporary driving a forklift, and now he's the vice president of the company. So, and that's what we're trying to teach people and get that word out there. It's the whole life cycle, right? From when you come out of school and then you can eventually retire as an executive in the company if that's your desire. So.
Does what Ryan's saying relate to what you see, Christine, at Nestle?
Yes, I think when we talk about talent attraction and retention, I think many other companies are facing similar challenges, and you really have to be thinking outside the box and how you you approach the challenges that come with this. I think from our facility and our perspective, you know, our number one challenge I'd say is we don't have an incredible large amount of, we don't have a huge workforce, number one, at least here in the presence in Marysville, just under 200 employees. So our workforce is very diverse, and we have a wide variety of expertise in our organization, anything from, you know, expertise in science and technology or consumer insights. We have very expertise type of roles, but we also have a small pilot plant. So we have a workforce that we need to find to support our site operations. So it's smaller than some of the local competitors. So I'd say that's probably one of our biggest challenges, finding very expertise type of roles to fit the positions that we need to support our business locally, and to support the global, you know, Nestle, but also to compete with the Hondas, the Scotts, right, for the technician type of roles supporting the site operations group. So, so that's certainly a challenge that we have in getting our name out there. I think Brian said it very well. One thing that we're really striving to do when we think outside the box is branding our name. I mean, locally, Nestle is a very well-known name, but a lot of people don't know of our presence and what we do here locally. So through things like partnerships with the community or schools, you know, these are ways that we try to overcome some of these challenges. And we'll get into this a little bit more later, but the early careers platform that we've established at Nestle to support the global initiatives, it's tremendous. And there's been a lot of effort and commitment into working with the schools, all the way from elementary schools. We've started to partner with elementary schools to talk about what we do, even if it's like a STEM project, right? Because I think a lot of curriculums now incorporate STEM or at an early age in school. So all the way from elementary school, all the way through universities, we're working on establishing these partnerships so that we can build a talent pipeline, build our brand awareness, get students into our school, whether it's through job shadow programs, internships, summer student programs, co-ops. You know, there's a lot of ways that we can be unique in the perspective to overcome some of these challenges. It certainly doesn't happen, and we don't see immediate impact overnight, but this is something that we take a lot of time and input in, and a lot of effort into, that we see over time, the commitment and you know, the impact, return on investment when it comes to that. We also have seen a lot of turnover when it comes to our contract workers, just because, again, that's a very competitive industry. So that's where we probably see most turnover within our local Nestle facility. So competing with a lot of others for similar type of talent. So lots of different ways, but you really have to look at it from a unique perspective and be open-minded.
So Adam, what does this bring to mind for you? We have a need for skilled labor, and I think there used to be a move, it seemed, for everyone to go off to a four-year college or something. Is that changing to fit the needs of these skilled professions? And then she's talking about needing people with, I'm sure, master's degrees are very expert positions too. So go ahead.
Yes. I have a colleague that's in the audience right now, Rick Smith from High Point. I think that, well, I know, I don't want to say I think, the narrative around education is changing in the United States. It's something that has to change. It's something that if you follow the narrative in the state of Ohio, it has truly changed from the governor's office all the way down to local boards of education. And it's really talking about the broad needs in the workforce, and that there are lots of ways. I love the term, like, your career lifespan. We want students to think of opportunities as a step, and that they have skills, attributes, and aptitudes that are moldable and flexible, where they can step into those skilled areas and grow over time. So as in our school district and most school districts now, there's research around growth mindset. Most of that is embedded in very young students. It's not a no, it's a not yet. And that really reflects itself in workforce development, because if you would have asked me when I was 16 years old, if I was going to be doing the work that I'm doing today, I probably would have laughed in your face and went and started juggling a soccer ball and looking for a game. Like, there was no, I didn't know where I was going to go, and the skills, knowledge, and attributes that I had allowed it to be flexible and follow some paths that were laid in front of me. So with some intention, what we do is we partner with our technical and career centers to really give one pathway to students so they can develop high skills at a very young age. And I'm not going to talk about, we partner with Tolles, not Ohio High Point, but some of the things that our students are doing at our career and technical centers are truly impressive, where they're going to walk out ready to enter the workforce. And some of those students will go to a traditional four-year college as well. The other side of that is internally within our K-12 platforms is exposure. And we know if we are getting to students later in their high school careers, past 9th or 10th grade, and we're talking about career exposure, it's probably too late for them to really start to dive into some of their interests, aptitudes, and abilities. So that's even going down into elementary school of talking about what their interests are. And again, it's really trying to go, where do talents lie? And how do we give you opportunities, whether that's in the classroom or with clubs, co-curricular opportunities, to hone those over time. One of the initiatives that we have taken in Fairbanks is we have something that is called Fairbanks Academy. Those are for our high school students. Those are 9th and 10th grade students. And then we have, Fairbanks Foundations. And then for our 11th and 12th grade, we have Fairbanks Academy. And so in 9th and 10th grade, we're really honing in on skills to develop learning. So what does executive functioning look like? What does study habits look like? Habits of mind. So those 9th and 10th grade students are then able, as 11th and 12th graders, to go out and carve a more individualized path. That includes internships, that includes potentially going to Tolles and really opening up pathways for them to explore one of those 4 Ps. So when they leave our schools, they're equipped to do so. And so we really want to partner with workforce of what they're seeing. We want to bring workforce into our schools, but we also want our kids and our staff. It's very important for our teachers to see what is happening in the workplace. It's changed, and there's a lot of assumptions that go on to what does a career in engineering look like if I'm a math teacher? And so getting our teachers exposed to what those platforms look like, because then they're going to be able to craft lessons and opportunities inside of our schools to model what's happening out in the workforce. So it's really a multi-pronged approach, and it's listening as well as trying to build capacity. But I think essentially in everything that we want for our kids, regardless of what they're graduating with, is we want them to have a flexible skill set that is then adaptable to opportunities that they come up against. And that's really that model of learning that we want students to have, because then it can be applied in a variety of areas.
Brian, what does what Adam's saying bring to mind for you? How can you do more with the schools, or maybe you already are doing things?
Yeah,
share what's going on.
Yeah, so we can never do it with the schools, number one. And we've been very narrow-minded to think that we don't need to partner, that we can do everything ourselves and internally. And that's been a lot of our internal culture, is we don't need help from anybody. We can recruit, we can retain people. Well, that's not the case anymore. You need all the avenues that you can find. And specifically, like Adam was saying, when I was younger, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up in mechanical engineering, which I don't do any of that today, right? Yeah. I love it, it's great, but that's not where I'm at today. And if I had something when I was younger, and I reflect upon that helped steer me based on my skill sets and what I enjoyed and what I like to do and talk to people, I'd probably be better off. So I think that's important if we can help get into the schools and teach what we do, because again, not everybody wants to go into logistics. Not everybody wants to go into, the food industry. Not everybody wants to be a teacher, but at least let us get in there and maybe find one or two, one's a victory, right? That you can help them find the career path that they'll be successful at. But we are actively trying to partner. And what I did was I reached out to the HR managers of each of our 3 companies. And I asked them all the questions that we had tonight, and one of them being, how can we do more for school? And the one was like, type everything in capital letters, we don't do enough, right? You know, and that sent a message to me that it's an opportunity. We don't just have to partner with the Marysville local school or the Bell Fountain, Ben Logan. There are a whole bunch of schools out here, right? And even maybe start in elementary schools, you know, start at the beginning. Don't wait until they're 9th or 10th grade to get them exposure to what we do, because by then they're not listening, they're just going to graduate and hopefully they land a job. The other thing that we need to, I think that education can help us with, is teaching the value of compensation, not the value of a dollar, right? Not your hourly wage, but the total rewards. That's what we call it, your total rewards when you come to us. So you have your base compensation, but you have medical, dental, vision, 401k, you know, discounts for Verizon phones. You know, we advertise those types of things to people, but if students can have exposure to what compensation really means, I think that will go a long way for people to make a life choice for some sort of industry, or stay with the company longer than 5 weeks or 1.5 months, which is what we see where our highest turnover is. That tells us that they had no idea what they're getting into, that they didn't know what they wanted to do, and it's costly for the companies. You know, the turnover is very, very expensive. We put a value of it, about $3,500 per person it takes to get them onboarded, trained, acclimated, and released into operations. And just a quick statistic, our turnover is around 7% at Midwest Express, and that's 98 associates per month. 98. So you can take 98 times 3,500 in the math, it adds up really quick, and it happens every month. We're just throwing money away, you know? So again, I go back to, that's where we can have a good partnership. We can go in and explain, hey, here's what compensation really is. Here's what we do, and here's what we can offer.
Is there a way to do like an open house or some way to have people come see what it's like?
Yes.
So they're not surprised?
Yeah, and we've been talking about that. And with COVID, everything kind of got, you know, sidetracked. And we didn't have any type of open houses. We did do a lot of family events and things like that. But we have talked about having an open house where people can come in and see what we do. You know, obviously you have to think about the safety first, et cetera. But seeing it and feeling it and being there actually makes a big difference. Because we used to do that for candidates, not in high school or in schools, but candidates from the outside. We take them on a tour, and then you would see people drop off and say, well, this is not for me. And it's so valuable versus coming in and testing tune up, this isn't for me. So yeah, it is.
Christine, do you want to add on to that? You two both have
Well, I probably
similar.
could speak the whole time about this, but being in HR, certainly front and center with a lot of these challenges and how we partner together. I mean, Nestle, again, is such a large organization. We have specialty functions probably similar to other companies that focus primarily on recruiting. I think one of the benefits to us locally in Marysville is that we have global initiatives that, you know, that will come down to each location, market, brand that help us be able to drive what we're doing locally, specifically when it comes to talent attraction and retention. I mentioned this earlier, but the Early Careers platform has been a top priority for us, like since I've joined the organization, and then also branding, because I recognize the benefit coming out of it. So I think when I first started, we had maybe 3 partnerships with schools, and that's a very broad term. It can be anything from elementary to university partnerships. Now we have like, I don't know, 20 partnerships that we're still working on. And just next month, we're actually hosting Global Scholars at our facility, and we'll be having about 400 students come on site from all over Columbus area, Central Ohio, and they'll be immersed into our culture and our company and learn a lot about what we do. And again, I feel very fortunate with Nestle. It's a well-known brand already, but there's so many different varieties of what someone can do, a student can do. Anything from a food and beverage, you know, science expert to HR, to community affairs, to finance, I mean, and technicians. I mean, it's just, as we've all mentioned, when we were younger, it seemed like we didn't know about these opportunities as early as students are today. I have young children at home and they're learning about careers already. Like my children in elementary school are talking about what they want to be and what they want to do, and that schools are partnering and leveraging on these opportunities. So you can't do enough, right, to partner and continue to build on these opportunities and benefits that certainly, again, help companies build a pipeline and also a career, right? Because you also see that too. A lot of people who start out of university or school, I think the highest amount of turnover you see is right when they start a new job. So it's very critical for a company to make an impression within those first 1 to 3 years on a new hire, because that's probably the highest risk that a company has for turnover. And we certainly see that at Nestle. So we've done things like enhanced our onboarding programs. We've prepared and allowed our leaders to have in-depth resources and tools and training to know how to properly onboard and give them the tools and resources to make sure that their employees are being, connected with. Culture is also a huge part of what connects an employee. We have a lot of different committees locally and as an organization that employees can be part of and connect to, whether it's something they're passionate about, like wellness or diversity or young talent. Like there's just different ways that you can find benefits and perks that you can offer to candidates and new employees that will only help, hopefully, retain talent, attract and retain talent.
So as a community, how can, while you have the mic, you can keep it, the housing affordability of our community, how does that affect this? I mean, bringing 400 people from all over Columbus to this community, and Marysville is an incredible community. But questions about housing, affordability, what other things do you think about? How can we as a community support your hiring?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when I think about Nestle and the benefits that we offer, we clearly have our own internal benefits that we offer, and we work through relocation, for example. But I think it's important for the community to continue. I mean, I'm not number one, I'm not an Ohio native, nor am I a local Union County or Marysville native, but I've learned a lot about the community and how great Marysville and the community is. So I think we have to leverage on those benefits. When I talk about with potential candidates, the opportunity to come to Marysville and join Nestle, a lot of people who are coming globally have never heard of Columbus, let alone Marysville. So it's a great way for us to utilize and share the benefits. We've created internally different types of methods to share the benefits and opportunities and local talent, local attractions, right, that we can share with the incoming new employees for themselves and for their families, because oftentimes when we have relocations, it could be just an individual, but it's oftentimes their families that come here as well. So enhancing and leveraging the great things that the community can offer, anything from schools for those families, or downtown or uptown Marysville and the local community itself. I think these are different ways, and maybe encouraging employers and companies to come to some of these events and broadcast the opportunities for them to learn more about ways to leverage and enhance on the opportunities.
Brian, take that one too. Affordability and housing, and how can the community support you and make sure they can come here and drive, or not have to drive?
So I can give you an example, and again, this is a very interesting topic and sometimes a difficult topic to have with communities, specifically in Marysville. But I've got an example to share. I'm building this project team, right? And it's composed mainly of engineers, right? So a skilled resource that it's hard to find, number one. So there was the candidate was from Florida, lived in Florida, but originally from Bell Fountain. But he wanted to get back to the local area, and he's looking at Marysville. So he thought, man, no problem, I can find a house in Marysville, the market's no problem. Didn't do his research, unfortunately, but he ended up accepting a position with us as an engineer, moved in with his parents so he could do some house shopping. Well, it's been 4 months now. He's still, every time he goes to put a bid on a house or go look at a house, it's way beyond his pricing point. So he's still living with his mom and dad, just had a new baby about 2 months ago. So now they have the complexity of 2 little ones with themselves, living with their parents and house shopping, and he's very stressed, right? And that stress impacts his productivity potentially. Now, again, he's a very good associate, has a lot of experience, but that's just one example. And related to our hourly workforce, because we can't find enough associates to work for us, whether it's because the drive distance or they can't find housing or whatever, we've actually employed associates from out of state. Well, those associates, there's no affordable or achievable housing for them to go into, apartments or condominiums or starter homes. We have 55 associates living in hotels in Marysville right now. Not for a week or two, months and months and months. So imagine the burden that's putting on them and their families, right? The cost to the company, because we have to pay for that. We can't expect them to do that. And it just creates a lot of angst and stress amongst everybody. But again, that statistic, 55 people are living in hotels. And how does that impact the community, right? The community has hotels of certain capacity, but when you have events, whether it's, homecoming parade and where families come into town, they want to get a hotel room, we're competing with them. So the impact to us, it's huge. It's huge. And a lot of times some people that we've interviewed, so it's very interested in the job. They like the community. They've done their homework, but they say, well, Brian, there's nowhere to live. I can't live in a hotel for an unknown amount of time. So the community's got to understand it's a big challenge, and it really impacts some corporations, and not only our company. I'm sure everybody's dealing with it. But what we need to do is try to band together and find ways and solutions that we can find achievable housing for people to come here and work for us, whether they're, just starting off out of high school or they're a tenured, expert or professional in any industry. So,
Adam, take this one too. Housing affordability, you're trying to hire too. What did you need? A school psychologist? What else? Did you need to hire?
We are in the process of right now. We have several vacancies. We have a school nurse. We are transitioning with a school psychologist. And then we have a variety of classified positions that are available, whether they're maintenance, paraprofessionals, aides. And so those are all typically locally sourced. One of the challenges that we have in the public sector right now is competing with the private sector. And so we have people that could fill those positions, but there are wages and benefits that are available in other lines of work that just we are unable as a public entity to compete with on a regular basis. So that's presented some challenges in the short term. And so we have to think creatively as a small school district in the Central Ohio region of how we are going to attract, recruit, and retain talent when we are competing in a bigger kind of ecosystem for hiring teachers, in particular specialties. Specialties are where we really are having a lack of candidates. So school psychologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, those are all folks that we have to employ within our school district. And so finding that candidate pool has been challenging. And so we're thinking of how do we do that at a regional level. We're working with our ESC, which is a consortium of school districts, to think about how we can do it differently. We just don't get good economy of scale when we recruit against a district like Dublin that has 17,000 students, or Worthington, and I can talk about them. I have friends that are doing this. So they're able to build a bench so they can go and offer positions anticipating that they're going to have 5 to 7 vacancies next school year. In a district where we employ 85 teachers, 145 full-time staff, we don't have the ability to go out and build that same bench. And so we're looking at ways that we can approach that regionally to take on some of those workforce challenges we have. From a housing standpoint, that does create challenges for all school districts. We want to have very strong schools because that does attract developers. It does attract people to want to move there. And also in a district like Fairbanks, where we are growing, we see moderate growth. We expect about 137 new students over the next 10 years. So the question is then for us, how do we provide them with a quality education? And then how do we have the infrastructure from a capacity lens to meet that growth? And so that presents some challenges locally where we have to talk to our community of how we're going to support that growth in the short, intermediate, and long term. And so that's something we've worked on as a school district over the last 2 years, knowing that growth is coming to our school district, but then also balancing that against the interest of taxpayers that do have pressures from where the current economy is. And so those are real challenges that schools deal with when it's growing as a community. What I would say is I have worked in places where the district has been declining in enrollment and housing has been in decline and people are leaving. And it's much better to be in a place where moderate growth is taking place because you're not talking about morale of losing programs, jobs, and impacts on kids. So I would rather be in a place where we can predict and we can plan versus we're reacting and having to make changes to our offerings for students. I hope I covered it.
Yes, you did, and you can keep the mic for another minute, because I was
Great.
gonna say, you started to get into the good news.
Yeah.
Like the beauty of having a growing community. And so any other blue sky, before we take Q&A from the audience, exciting things you want to share down the line here?
Just from Fairbanks, what we're really excited about is over the last 5 years, we have really walked down this path of recreating our mission, our vision, and our strategic objectives as an organization. We have alignment around our high school academic framework. We talk about, so if you go into school districts, you may see this in other places. It's called a portrait of a graduate. And it's really the knowledge, the skills, and attributes that we want students to have when they leave our schools. And so when you hear graduate, you feel that that's very focused on high school. We obviously, we had to Fairbanksianize it. I'm not sure if that's a word or not, but we have our portrait of a Panther, which is around our Panther heart, our Panther mind, and our Panther muscles. And so that's a K-12 initiative that really talks about, with our Panther mind, what is the knowledge that we possess? Our Panther heart is how do we build empathy, understanding, respect for the people that we work with every day. And then our Panther muscles are built around the resilience that we want students to have when they're learning. So taking risks, trying new things, growth mindset. And so those really reflect, that was a community-driven process. So we're excited about implementation there. We're growing every year with new programs. We have just implemented multiple College Credit Plus classes this year, AP classes, AP Spanish, which is new addition this year. We have brought in a high school Project Lead the Way program that built on our 6 through 8 pathway. Our elementary school, we know that kids thrive in academic settings when they have other connections within their school environment. This year, we are starting after-school club programs that all students can be a part of. So again, building that connection to school so it fosters their interest, their abilities, so they thrive in the academic world. So we're always looking at ways that we can improve students' experiences. So when they leave our schools, they're ready to take on whatever their next steps are.
What are you excited about, Brian?
There's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
tell us.
So much like I started off the conversation, we were looking at new technology, innovation. We've done our research and our homework, and what we found is that the associates that we're getting out of high school or out of college, they like a technical environment to work in. They're techies, they grew up with a cell phone or a tablet, video games. So we did some research and found really good information to back up the case to, instead of having manual processes where people are lifting and using their muscles, we want them to use their brain, right? And we're excited to say that we found a solution to do that, and that we feel that this will actually attract associates and people to come work for us and also retain them because it's challenging their brain and they get to play with technology versus just moving containers around or driving a forklift. So we're really excited about this, and we just received our funding a month ago, approval for funding, which is a big step for our organization. I mean, it's hard to get anything approved with an organization and based on our culture and such. But again, it's exciting. And we're getting to hire new engineers, and we're pulling engineers out of college, and we're pulling engineers from competitors that have experience in logistics and automation innovation. So it's really exciting. And that's something that we'd like to showcase with students once it's implemented. So, come this time next year, we're going to have an automated warehouse that we can showcase and bring them in and say, hey, you can come work here. So that's what we're really excited about now and then focused on. And I'll leave it with the other approach is instead of conducting what we call stay interviews, why do you stay with us, right? The connotation is negative to associates. Like, well, should I not stay? Should I be leaving? To having more of a conversation and not having a piece of paper and having all these questions they're asking and not making eye contact, and you feel like you're having a test. So we're trying to make the process of we call it the touch points, 30, 60, 90 days, that process more personal and having a discussion versus very strict system. So those are the two things we're excited about right now is the technology and a different approach to retention. So,
Well, I'm very excited to hear about everything. We're talking about working in HR. It's just certainly definitely motivating and exciting. So I think what I'd like to probably lead with, I spoke about this a lot already, but the initiatives that we're doing with early careers and the platforms that we have, it's so exciting. And the amount of progress that we've seen in a short period of time, we're only going to continue to build upon that. So opening those doors, starting the conversations, hearing about what is happening in the schools so we can leverage those opportunities, whether it's through a project that our employees go to participate in the school, or someone come to a school and speak about careers and what is available, just to continue to open up the students' minds and see what is out there. So very excited to continue to see the doors that continue to open and the opportunities that come from those partnerships. We as well have a very tenured workforce at Nestle, so it's very important for us to make sure that we're building this pipeline for succession. And succession is such a critical part of a business and how we continue to see us moving forward. So we have a lot of initiatives. I think the early careers platforms, the succession planning internally and externally. We have a lot of training opportunities, as Brian was alluding to internally. Fortunately, Nestle is a large organization, so we have a lot of internal opportunities. We're focusing a lot here within the last couple of years on equipping our leaders with the right tools and resources to be effective with being a leader, which is really the most important job that they have, is to lead people and have conversations with them. Not necessarily a stay interview, but just a regular conversation about career. How are you doing? Get to know each other. Help build that culture so people hear about us, want to stay, come join us and want to stay with us. And, I think it's important that we continue to have dialogue like this and talk about together how we can overcome some of these challenges, because we're not alone in some of the challenges, a lot of the challenges that we face. So it's really exciting to be here. I didn't mention this earlier, but I used to work at Scott's right down the road. So I see a lot of similar challenges faced, right? And I worked leading HR for some of the factories and warehouses. So see a lot of the similar challenges, and I think it's very beneficial to have these open discussions to see how we can work together through overcoming some of these challenges.
Just in our conversations, we've had such a good discussion of ideas together. So I want to thank Union County for having us do this, because we learn from each other. And Eric, if you have anybody who has any questions for us, we are.
First, wow, the thoughtfulness, the intelligence up here. What great discussion tonight. This goes a long way. and what great leaders we have here that make a difference in our community. Now, questions. Mr. Stolte, Steve never has a question,
All right, Steve.
ever.
Eric, you may have to chime in on this question too. I remember some years ago, we used to have an active, and I forget just exactly what it was called, maybe business education workforce team or something. And I'm curious if that effort still exists, whether it is as successful as it could be, whether it needs to be improved, and if so, how?
We don't, I can't answer that question. We do not have that anymore. There used to be a Business Education Advisory Council that we had locally. The schools are required to have, and Adam could probably speak to this as well. They're required to have one. We do not have one locally. What we do is we have an HR council. We have a workforce committee that meets on a regular basis with representation from the different schools and some businesses. So that's what we do have. Adam, I know there's a BAC. Is that mic working? Okay, good. I'll let Adam chime in with this.
So Fairbanks Local Schools is a part of the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio's Business Advisory Council. So we connect with businesses across the greater Central Ohio area. One of the priorities our board has placed moving forward for us is how do we bring more local partnerships into our schools with intention. And so our internship program, I just learned that Christina got paperwork today for an internship program from Fairbanks, which is very exciting. So just with intention of working with our local partners, we have internships currently at Nestle, Select Sires, Memorial Health, but that's not our council that we're bringing together. The community locally that I know, I can't speak to Marysville, but Richwood has a very healthy business advisory council, and they work very collaboratively together. And so a model like that would seem to be something that we could replicate. We have some challenges just geographically, but if we did it more of a Union County, Marysville, Plain City, I think there's probably some opportunity there for us.
I know our career tech, so High Point, Rick, they have one as well as tolls. A lot of our relationships are through the career techs that then communicate with the K-12 schools too. Good question. Other question, Janelle. Jason, I'll get to you next.
My name is Janelle Alexander, and I work for Union County Human Services. But I guess I don't have a question, I just have feedback. And if you want to comment on it, that's fine. I have 4 nieces who are between the age of 18 and 24. Those 4 went to High Point. They went to a small school, Riverside in Logan County. And this is what I've observed over the last few years with them trying to find work. The oldest one got the Honda college program during the summertime, which was wonderful. You know, that really helped them push them forward to paying off their college. And I asked them while they were doing that summer program, like, why don't you try to stay there? And the feedback from them was they were studying like an electronic program in college, and they were put in a unit where they were like greasing things. And they said they didn't see where they could fit in the company. And then also they were like, my body won't hold up. Like I have to do repetitive motions. So I was just gonna give the feedback. Like, I don't know if once you get them there, if after maybe a couple months, you could be like, look what else we do here. Or here's where we can maybe rotate you and so your body won't break down. The next one was the second sibling was a year younger. Also went to High Point and they studied welding. So during the summertime, they applied for the college program at Honda and they didn't get selected. So that kid was like, they never got feedback about why they didn't get selected. It didn't make sense to them, especially because they studied welding. Another feedback was, I don't know how you group them when you interview them, but they were able to see who else was there. So they could connect with people that lived next to them. So like my nieces carpooled with other high school kids or, you know, freshly graduated ones because they didn't have transportation. So if that could be something maybe you look at, like if you could group them kind of together to where they could maybe get there together. The other thing I asked him was like, what, this is the first time kind of you have good healthcare. And that didn't seem to really appeal to them. But I was thinking, I know you have healthcare sites at your facilities sometimes. If you could maybe think about incorporating things like a dentist, like, and make that available at least maybe short-term while they're employed there. The other thing I was just considering is if you could maybe consider hiring siblings. Like maybe if it isn't a right fit, maybe give them like a second chance. Okay, let's see. And then also like, once you get them there, do you ever, like, especially the college kids, are you ever telling them like, hey, what are you studying? Here's how that could fit. Because my niece was studying some type of electronics with broadcasting and she didn't see any place in the company. And I don't know if she even asked. So that's just a little bit of feedback from my 4 nieces who tried to get jobs around here.
Great feedback.
Well, she did a lot of homework there for this presentation.
Yeah.
Any comments from the panel?
Yeah, I'll field this one. So I work for Honda Logistics, and logistics are, you're speaking more of the Honda manufacturing side and assembly side, but I can provide some feedback of what we're trying to do and try to address some of those issues where people come in to do a certain job and then they're put on a different job. Because a lot of times during the recruiting process, we don't ask the right questions of what are your skill sets? What do you want to do? Again, instead of going down a list of things, hey, can you be employed in the United States? You know, do you have a driver's license? Do you have this? Do you have this? That's the wrong way to interview somebody. So I can echo the frustrations that you have from the employer side too, is bring people in, they work for 2 or 3 days and they're gone. Well, why didn't you do your homework? You know, why didn't you try to understand what we truly do? So it's a give and take, but what we need to do is a better job of getting to know the people. You know, we talked about that up here as becoming more personal as employers, understand what people's goals and objectives are. And in regards to healthcare, I know Honda does have on-site healthcare, and I know we on our side are looking to do the same thing. We're looking to put a wellness center in, but a wellness center would have to have, you know, medical and dental and potentially vision, you know, and try to use the collective resources from Honda and their suppliers and partners to create something like that. Again, I'm not speaking on behalf of Honda. I cannot do that, so please don't. But
Hey, Brian, do you guys have access to the Honda gym or no?
No, we do not. No. But again, I'm speaking about the things that we as a Honda subsidiary are challenged with. And again, it's getting to know the people, and they're just not an associate number, right? That they have a name behind that. And that's why we wear uniforms, because there's a name on one side and a company on the other side. So yeah, I hear you in regards to, you know, they have a certain skill set, you know, but they're not sure how it applies to the company. That's something we have a problem with too, whereas associate might have some really good skill sets, but we're interviewing them for, you know, a supervisor, but they really should be an AR rep, right? And aligning the skill set with the associates, with the opportunities within the organization.
Great comments.
I have a few other comments, not speaking on behalf of Honda, but I think a lot of companies are recognizing this. We talked a lot about the talent attraction and retention piece, which needs to be intentional. And I think a lot of companies are molding their process and continuing to evolve it, right, to make sure it's intentional, and we want to make sure it's a good fit culturally, right, because that's very important. And also a lot of companies are looking at offering different types of benefits and perks, larger numbers if they can afford it, right, based on what they can offer and the packages that they can be part of, but to attract and you know, leverage different types of candidates to make sure it's appealing to a variety of different candidates. But I know a lot of companies, I can speak on Nestle's behalf when you talk about career development. I, working at Nestle, have never seen so much intention with focus on career development and career support. And I think a lot of companies are heading in this direction. It's incredible when I continue to learn. I've nowhere near learned the amount of opportunities that are available through Nestle, but we offer different types of assignments, like short-term assignments, for example, where employees can go participate in a project or apply internally in a project. for a short period of time. It could be, you know, a 3-week long project where someone needs help, I don't know, working on the flow of a process, and you can post that type of opportunity internally, and everyone in the company can take a look at it and apply to it. You can go on a mission assignment, which is like a short-term, maybe 3 to 6 month-long assignment overseas, for example. I know not a lot of companies offer that, but it can also open up the experience, the eyes of the person that works there to see what other opportunities are available. Because I think that's what we're faced with too. It's like, it's overwhelming at times, the amount of opportunities that are available. And that's where those direct and candid conversations benefit the employee with the manager to know how to help shape and mold their career.
Great responses. We have time for one more question, a quick question. Janelle gave a dissertation, so a question. I'm giving Janelle a hard time. So ask a question, we'll get a quick answer, so we'll get out of here and go watch the parade if it's already over.
Okay. So you started to touch on this in your different comments, but setting the housing issue aside, because we talked about that one quite a bit, what are things that you see either in your companies or the community that we can capitalize on and magnify and say, we have great companies, we have a great community, we have these things that if we continue to beat that message out, so people will want to look here as we're trying to fix housing and everything else. They go, yes, there are opportunities. They want to stay long-term. Look at your tenured employees. You mentioned that before. Things that you might hear just in the conversations that they go, this is a great place, a great company to be.
I just got done talking about it.
Where I would start is Union County. So I moved to Union County a little about 5 years ago now, a little under 5 years ago, and it has been a really it was a surprising experience in all candidness. I didn't have an expectation of what it was going to feel like or to be, and it's evolved to allow us to develop very deep relationships. And a lot of flexibility is what I love about where I live, and who I get to connect with is I have a lot of flexibility in my life. I have the amenities. This morning I had a meeting and was able to connect with colleagues at Columbus State downtown. It was 30 minutes from my house. I was back in Fairbanks later that day, and then I'm able to come to Marysville and do something like this. I think the flexibility and the connectedness that you have to the greater Columbus area is very attractive for professionals as well as for families. And then you can explore it the way that you want to, because Marysville has got plenty of opportunities. But then if you are what maybe Fairbanks residents call country dwellers, that you may commute into the city and come out and live on 5 acres. You have that opportunity as well. And so I just think there's flexibility in our community, and a greater Union County community. I think one of the challenges is like, how do you continue to live and have the shared community expectations and have this kind of pride in your past while you're welcoming new people. And I think the heritage and the great traditions that we have in our school community and our broader community allows for people to come in and learn that and feel welcome like our family has. So I think those are the selling points, is the relationships, the opportunity, and the flexibility of this region in Central Ohio.
Yeah, I just want to add something really quick. Something else you can add is the convenience, right? Because that's what the society is so focused on right now. How convenient is this for me to do something, whether it's to go get groceries or, you know, go to Walmart, or how to get to work, and then a sense of community. I mean, unfortunately, I don't live in Marysville, but I live in Delaware, and it's just they sell such a sense of community where they have a lot of events, and I see Marysville is really starting to focus on that. And when people feel like they're part of a community and they have friends and they can collaborate, they'll feel like they're at home. So that's what I see from my point of view.
I'll add one more thing. I think building upon everything that we've said, how can we, I don't have the answer to it, but how can we make sure we're equipping the employers with this great information and these resources? And I know there's a lot of work continuing to be done in that realm, but like, for example, we've developed some of our internal resources to share with newcomers to our company about the great things that are available in Marysville and Union County. So just equipping employers with different tools and resources. I'd say we have a lot of people, again, that come to Nestle from different parts of the world, and they're very pleasantly surprised with the experience here. Nothing like what they had imagined. I don't know what they would imagine, but very pleasantly surprised and happy. And a lot of people actually end up localizing and moving here and not going back to their home country. So.
Great testimonials there. Beth, any closing comments?
I was just gonna say, you made me think of it. There is an Indian family that my husband and I met, and this year they live in an apartment, but they used our land to put in a garden. And we have had just so much fun with them as they've been gardening at our house with us, And so I think mentorship or, continuing that neighbor community feel will keep growing. And we're such an international community. You're just back from Japan and so many opportunities internationally. So
Who has
thank
the
you.
bigger tomatoes this year, the better tomatoes?
What'd
Who
you
has
say?
the better tomatoes, your garden or their garden?
Well, they're all together. So we're just sharing, and they planted some squash that I've never seen before that are like a delicacy from India. So we're gonna have some interesting food.
Awesome. Well, what a great panel, great discussion. Let's give them all a round of applause. All great leaders, rock stars in this community. We're so blessed to have them here. Again, we live in a special place that we've talked about many times before, but workforce challenges, housing challenges, those are probably good problems to have, but problems we need to continue to dialogue on. Our next session speaker series will be on October 18th. We almost have, and I think we're going to have the Ohio Department of Development Director, Lydia Mahalik, will be here, along with Kenny McDonald, who is the President and CEO of the Columbus Partnership. They're going to talk about housing, economic development throughout Ohio, so we'll do some comparisons around the state. Great session, so we invite you to come back for that session and learn more, but that's October 18th. And we have one more session this year. It's on November 1st. It's going to focus on Licking County and their challenges related to Intel and what it means to them and how that compares to Union County, Marysville. So those are the final two installs of this program series. So again, another round of applause for our speakers. Everyone have a safe night.
If we don't get some housing in here, we're screwed, Derek.
Shut up.
Huh? Shut up.
I'll get the hammer and the 2x4s.
Yeah.
You pour the concrete.
We're gonna have to.
It's beautiful.
I know the rocks.
How you doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey.
What's next time?
We do. I don't know where they are now.
Hey, Ben.
Good.
Good.
I went down for him, son.
I was gonna say,
It was pretty nice.
that to talk about going, whether it's going or not.
I didn't
Yeah.
A lot of walking there. We walked.
Yeah, at least it's not too hot. Really? I guess I wasn't outside long enough.
Yeah.
You guys get your school board candidates figured out?
Oh, yeah.
Hello there. Hey, thank you. Good. I'm not at the Y anymore. Are you still a Y member? Okay. All the time.
Every August 1st?
Every 4 days, or 4 days a week.
Let me give it to you here. Okay. Yeah, I don't.
You can pull
There we
up
go.
if you want. Pull it
Pull
on
up.
up.
All right.
That's probably
Okay,
easier.
There you go. That'll work. Yep.
There we
All
go.
right.
Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Okay.
Good job.
Good job filming us.
I've been practicing. Pushing buttons.
Okay.
So, say. Push
That's
buttons.
Well, video is like, I think of video as like accounting. Difficult. Very difficult. Like if you made me edit video, I would be very upset.
Thanks, Brent. Great job.
Thank you. Thank
Different
you.
skill
It was
set.
fun. Yes. Yes.
Can I ask,
Well, I
did
know
you
you
ever,
have a million.
affordability, did you ever talk to the home? 100,000 and a third of a house being built goes to regulatory fees and permits and whatnot. Affordability is a joke unless you fix that. And if you can't find people to work, who's going to build it? I'm just saying it's a losing battle. Unfortunately, it's a losing battle, but
The other thing is about supply and demand.
But, well, and the problem is the more you satisfy this challenge, the more companies that are going to come because it's good. And then it's just going to budget. It's a challenge, but yeah. Opportunity. Well, have you made, I haven't, but maybe you've made some progress in the air.
How did you know? No, oh,
I just assumed.
yeah.
It's been a month or so.
Yeah. I think it was last week sometime I on my way through Delaware and checked in at the airport there with my friend Mike Spencer. And I said, hey Mike, what's the chance of me flying planes again? I was getting my everything back in order. And he said, well, kind of bad news, but then maybe good news. So he's losing one of his 172s.
Losing like it's not working?
No, it's coming out of his pool of airplanes. It's coming from Marysville. So the guys that own the plane are the two guys that run the Marysville airport. They're not the county people, they're the actual operators.
Just sent it to me. I'm like, where do you get
So they basically, so I reached out and said, hey,
well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
What's the story? I want to, get in some kind of position to be able to fly it.
Bye. Thank you.
Hey,
I mean, it's part of life.
Well done.
With October being one of the better months to fly, all the right things with the air and the wind, and we don't have big thunderstorms and all that kind of stuff. So
Is this
anyhow,
a dry, thinner air better?
thicker air makes the plane fly a little better.
Thicker.
Yep. It's like if you put your boat in the water and your propeller's spinning through bubbles, it doesn't go as fast as when it's spinning through water. So thicker.
I couldn't remember.
Same with
I couldn't remember if thicker made it more turbulent or gave it too much or.
Well, that's why the jet engine had to be developed. A propeller can only spin so fast. And when the air gets too thin, there's nothing for the propeller to bite into.
To grab.
So the jet engine sucks in air, compresses it, and explodes it out the back end. So it can go high.
I've heard that explanation for space, because they're like, how do you push off of nothing? And they're like, well, it's I saw a guy analogy of it's like throwing a wrench. Like you push off of the wrench.
Yes.
And so those little
Yeah, no, yeah, it's the explosion inside that rocket nozzle.